Hey guys, Redneck Mini 14 here, and today is 9/11, September 11th. So you should, if you're an American, you should know what 9/11 is. And that, of course, is back in 2001, 14 years ago, when two planes hit the World Trade Center. A plane hit the Pentagon, and a plane hit a field in Pennsylvania. Which was thought to have been heading towards the Capitol building or the White House, one of those two. I don't know exactly what the theory is on that. Anyway, this video is basically about the fact that I'm just absolutely tired of seeing conspiracy theories on 9/11 going around social media. For a while, every day, pretty much, I would see one or two pages on Facebook that I liked because they're pro-gun pages. And they always would support these conspiracy theories on 9/11, saying things like, did you know that jet fuel doesn't burn at the same temperature that steel melts? And, the only reason that 9/11 happened was so that we could go over to Afghanistan and Iraq and take their oil and this and that. I'm just so tired of it. Like, people, first of all, people are totally disrespecting everybody that died on that day. And over 3,000 people died that day of civilians, police officers, firefighters, paramedics. A lot of people died that day, and you're pretty much just kind of like disrespecting their deaths, for one. Number two, this whole thing about melting steel beams, I have not seen any proof anywhere that steel beams actually melted because of jet fuel burning. Yeah, jet fuel burns hot, but it doesn't burn hot enough to melt steel beams. I don't know what man-made could burn and melt steel beams. I mean, that's a very significant amount of heat. People say, well, it looks like bombs went off in there. Well, okay. I still don't think bombs burn that hot to melt steel beams. Do you? And where is this proof that, the beams actually melted? Because people actually think that they melted like into liquid. Like, that's what people say on these social media sites, and I have not seen one documentary or anything that suggests that it melted. It's pretty much just this he said, she said garbage that's going around because somebody was bored one day and decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to just spread a rumor, and, people believe it. People will believe whatever they hear. But again, I don't think those steel beams melted. The thing is, when steel gets hot, it'll expand. And when it expands, it's going to lessen the integrity of the building eventually to a point where it's going to collapse under the weight of the however many floors were above where the planes hit. And those planes took up several floors, so that's quite a bit of fire and expanding steel. So again, I don't think those steel beams actually melted. I mean, I don't even know what would burn hot enough for them to melt, like melt. Then people will talk about Building 7, because multiple buildings actually fell on 9/11. I don't know what all buildings they were. I only know the only other building I know fell was a hotel. And part of that is probably from the shock wave of the planes hitting the building. And then part of it's probably has to do with the heat coming off of the building. But I'm not a scientist, and I don't want to pretend like I know exactly why these other buildings fell. And all these other buildings were pretty close to the World Trade Center. Um, and again, part of it could have been from the the towers actually falling themselves and lessening the integrity of the buildings around them, stuff like that. I don't really know that much about that, but I mean, I don't see what the government would have done to cause 5 extra buildings to collapse if this was indeed an inside job, which I don't think it was. Um, people think that that the government made 9/11 an inside. That the government was in on 9/11 so that we could go over to Afghanistan and Iraq and get their oil deposits and whatever. Because that all 14 or however many terrorists there were on 9/11, most of them were from Saudi Arabia, which was a U.S. ally, which is kind of an interesting thing, don't you think? Well, yeah, okay, so they're from Saudi Arabia, but what organization are they a part of? Are they part of Al Qaeda? If they're part of Al Qaeda, and the leader of Al Qaeda isn't in Saudi Arabia, the leader of Al Qaeda is in Afghanistan, which, by the way, the leader of Al Qaeda at the time was Osama bin Laden, who is now dead. But if the leader of Al Qaeda is in Afghanistan, why the hell would we go to war with Saudi Arabia? And again, we didn't go to war with Afghanistan. We didn't go to war with Afghanistan. We went to war with Al Qaeda. It was a war on terrorism. It wasn't a war against 2 countries. It was a war against a country and a terrorist group. So I don't really understand what you mean by we went into Afghanistan and Iraq to take their oil, because that's not what happened. Then there's this whole theory that Al Qaeda was formed by the CIA. Really? Really? Here's the thing, guys. There are terrorist groups out there that hate the U.S. Why do they hate the U.S.? Because of our stance on Israel. Well, what is Israel? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Israel is a small country over in the Middle East that we gave to Jews after World War II. Okay? Why did we do this? Because the Jews were treated pretty badly in World War II and the Holocaust, so we decided to give them kind of a sanctuary place to live. Well, in doing so, we took it away from the Arabs that already lived there, and the Arabs were pretty pissed, and so all of these countries, Egypt and who else? Iran maybe. I don't really know all the different countries that are around there, but all of these different countries got pretty pissed that we took this small chunk of land away from the Arabs and gave them to the Jews. So now they hate America. So that's why they hate us, okay? It's not because we're the land of the free. It's because we took part of their land away and they want it back. And the thing is, it's just this constant war, not really a war, but this constant conflict against the U.S. and the Middle East because of Israel. But people can't seem to grasp this concept. People don't understand that there's all these other countries that hate us for this particular reason. They just don't want to accept this fact. They just want to come up with excuses on why we start wars and blame it all on the government. And this one was the kicker. Was somebody made this comment that said, if you don't think that the government was in on 9/11, well then you must be an Obama supporter and just keep on listening to everything Obama says. Okay, Obama wasn't in office in 2001. Who was in office in 2001 in presidential office? It was George Bush. Obama wasn't even a U.S. senator in 2001. He was a state senator. So pretty much, unless you were in Illinois, you really didn't know who Obama was back then. Like he was a nobody almost. Um, so that's a pretty invalid statement. Um, and it wasn't even a Democrat that was in office in 2001. It was a Republican. And was George Bush the greatest president ever? No, I don't think so. I actually really did not like George Bush. But again, I really wasn't into politics back then. I was a little kid. But again, I didn't really like George Bush. But then Obama came along, and I just really didn't like Obama. And I was like, hey, where's George Bush? Because I kind of miss George Bush. But George Bush was one of two presidents that broke the 90% approval ratings from the American people, which kind of interestingly enough, the only two presidents to get a 90% approval rating was George Bush and George Bush. And again, I think that's has to do with the Middle East conflict and the wars that both of them were a part of. But take it for what you will. I think we should have went to war for 9/11. I definitely think we should have. I don't think we should have slowed down. I think we should have kept on going. But people, it's just like with Vietnam. Everyone wanted to go to war in Vietnam when it first started, even though it was really a stupid reason why we went to war. It was kind of like a mistake almost. But again, everyone wanted to go to war because they thought that the North Vietnamese were against us and this and that. And a few years later, once the media shows up and starts showing clips from the Tet Offensive, everybody's like, we need to back out of this war because this is outrageous. And, I don't understand the American people. I don't understand why the media has to do the things that they do, because we were winning the Vietnam War, and I don't know if we were necessarily winning the Afghanistan War, but the media kind of changes people's opinion on things. So anyway, this is kind of a really rambling on video. I don't even know how long it is. It's probably pretty long. But yeah, I'm just really, really sick of conspiracy theories. And there's conspiracy theories about everything. There's conspiracy theories about Sandy Hook, and there's conspiracy theories about the Aurora shooting. There's conspiracy theories on Dylan Roof and this other guy who shot the reporter and the cameraman. There's just conspiracy theories about everything, and pretty much they all have to do with the shooters or the terrorists or whoever being employed by the U.S. government. And of course, some conspiracy theories could be true, but I'm pretty sure most of them aren't true. Some people just don't want to face reality and accept the fact that there are mentally ill people out there that want to kill people, or there's whole countries out there that hate the U.S. and would do whatever they wanted to start a war with us. People just don't want to accept reality. Anyway, that's kind of it for this video. Subscribe to my channel, like me on Facebook. I'm RedneckMini14, and until next time, be safe.